Powered by Riverside FM.
Blue or off-white? This was the apparent choice presented to my wife when choosing between two specialist running backpacks. The blue was an inoffensive light blue, and the off-white was that grubby colour that looks like it was white, then just got dirty. But by going straight to the off-white, they've even denied you the few uses of it being a clean white. So blue or unappealing off-white seemed like an easy choice. However, the preferred colour of blue was only available for the unisex version of this bag, and the off-white version only available in the women's version. As well as being a puzzling colour dilemma, the obvious question is, putting colour to one side, is there actually any difference between the unisex and women's version? This is a backpack that's being discussed. Digging into the specifications, it was apparent that the capacity of the bag was identical. But then we saw that there were some differences. The length of the straps and the adjustment positions were slightly different. On its own, a backpack ought to be primarily unisex. Indeed, most non-technical backpacks would be. But for those backpacks where positioning is important and perhaps involve close fitting and a number of straps, the dimension, positioning, and adjustability of the straps is very important, and hence, to some extent, can be tailored to better suit men or women. With regards to accessories, many other accessories are unisex. Caps, sunglasses, even some t-shirts can be unisex. They can be worn by all, but they simply may fit less well for some individuals rather than others. Next, though, I turn to shoes, and this is something which had baffled me for a while. In most shops and most retailers' websites, men and women have shoes, especially sports shoes, which are listed separately under separate categories. This is not just about style, as all sorts of colours are available to both. So is there a reason for this? While the spectrum of human feet is quite wide-reaching, and in general women have smaller feet than men, it's therefore perhaps understandable that shoe sizes in the respective ranges most commonly worn by men and women might be targeted and presented slightly differently. But what didn't make sense to me was why the distinction should be so binary, and in particular, why a different size scale should be used. My understanding was that a shoe listed as a woman's size 6 may not be equivalent to a shoe listed as a man's size 6. Myself, never having been close to the boundary, had never actually explored this. However, having done a piece of cursory research, it transpires that it varies by country, but in the UK, it is indeed the case that men's and women's shoe sizes are not the same. Men's UK sizes are typically about one size larger than the equivalent women's size. For example, a UK men's size 8 is roughly equivalent to a UK women's size 9. That seems really quite confusing to me. There's really only two rationales for this. The first is that aside from the length of the foot, the width of a foot is also relevant, and they don't vary proportionately. In general, women tend to have narrower feet than men, even at the same length. So having a separate sizing system which accounted for width could make some sense. Or a more capitalist explanation is based on the marketing. Separate sizing helps brands to tailor their products to differentiate them between men and women, and to tailor styles which they think will appeal to each of those audiences. This type of marketing ploy is quite common. Perhaps the most obvious example is razors, where products which are essentially the same are targeted at different markets through packaging, product placement, and colors, in an attempt to levy different prices. This is the so-called pink tax. More extreme examples of products not being available or not designed for women do exist. This takes me to the book Invisible Women by Caroline Perez. It's a detailed and thoroughly sourced polemic. It sets out a wide-reaching exposition of where the data collection process has missed out or underrepresented women. As a consequence of this missing data, designs and policy decisions are taken in a way that fails their needs. The book covers all sorts of areas, from clothing to urban planning to healthcare. For example, it highlights issues where uniforms and specialist clothing designed for emergency services workers have not adequately fitted women's sizes, and as a consequence has either hindered their ability to fulfill the job or has even put them at risk. Another example is that crash test dummies have primarily been based on replicating men. As a consequence of the lack of tests based on dummies designed around women's bodies, the designed vehicles have ended up putting women at greater risk in real-world accidents. Returning to the start of this podcast, given that women are often missing from data, it's actually reassuring to see examples where there is an availability of a women's specific technical backpack alongside the unisex and men's versions. But this still doesn't answer the question about the color difference. Let's hope that whoever thought off-white was a good color choice soon becomes more adventurous in their color designs.